Hi, welcome to Blue Blood Television at Tyler's Tap Room in Durham, North Carolina. Festive atmosphere here. We're joined by former Duke defensive back Joby Branion, who in real life is a super agent in the NFL, athletes first, one of the best in the business. But we're going to get in the time machine and go back and talk about
when I had hair.
when you had hair and you were a fleet defensive back for the Blue Devils, starting in the early '80s under Red Wilson. And you started as a freshman.
I did.
So you came in and made an impact right away.
I did. I came from a high school where if we had 300 people at the game, it was big. It was a little private high school. And we had a great year. My junior year, my senior year, we didn't win a game. So I came to Duke, and I was prepared, for losses. As it turns out, again, I started, I think the third or fourth game of the year I started, and for the rest of the season. My first game was against Virginia Tech, and I had 2 interceptions, game winner in the end zone, and it was spectacular.
You were the man. This is easy.
Yeah, they had Bruce Smith.
Right.
I mean, this Virginia Tech, and we beat Virginia Tech, and we had a winning season that year. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were 6-4 going into the Carolina game, and again, it was my very first Carolina game, and they had a lot of talent. And they had this running back named Kelvin Bryant. And I can tell you, he had, I think, a 16, 18-yard touchdown run against us. He made 6 guys miss, and I think I missed him twice. And it was just like those guys are playing at a different level.
Right.
It was the same year Clemson won the national championship. Sure. That next year, we had another shot at him, as we did every year. And we ended up beating Carolina at Wallace Wade. And I remember several things about that game. I remember early in the game we picked up their audible, so we knew when they made certain checks what play they were going to run.
Right.
So they, Scott Stankiewicz was quarterback. He came out. He'd look at the defense. He'd say red, and we knew what the play was. Or if he said whatever the other color was, we knew that it was going to be a different play. And that helped us immensely. But they still had Kelvin Bryant. I think they had Ethan Borton. They were loaded.
Ethan was the backup.
He was the backup.
He was just coming into
and that
his
was
own.
Before they had running backs that big.
Right.
And I remember early in the game, and Kelvin Bryant might remember this. I hit him. I was like piling on, and as I was getting up, I dragged my leg across his neck. Held him down a little bit, let my foot sort of catch him in the jaw as I was getting up. Not trying to hurt him, just let him know I was there.
Let him know you were there.
He got hot, and he got up screaming. And I said, man, you're the star. Come on, don't let me rattle you. And the whole idea was just the whole,
Okay, Joby, did it work?
We won.
Okay.
Yeah, and we won, and it was, they tore down the goal. We hadn't beaten Carolina in 13 years.
Sure.
They tore down the goalposts. It was amazing. And the rivalry was real. Serious.
Was he the most amazing you remember in
Yes.
that rivalry, playing against him?
Yes. He was phenomenal. And when you saw him without his pads, he wore these huge pads. You saw him without his pads on, he was skinny. But in those pads, he was so explosively fast. It was around the same time he had 15 touchdowns the first 3 games, and then he tore his ACL.
Right.
And then he came back and finished the year, and I think that might have been my freshman year.
Yeah, he was in the Heisman voting. He was in the contention for the Heisman
if he had stayed healthy, he'd have won the Heisman. He had 15 touchdowns in 3 games. Mm-hmm. It was ridiculous. But yeah, he was probably one of the most amazing Carolina players that I ever remember playing against.
How much did that win mean? Because as you mentioned, it had been a while since Duke had beaten Carolina. And that must have meant so much for the program.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't – first of all, the place was packed at Duke, and half the fans were Carolina fans. And, that bothered us a little bit. But yeah, it meant the world. It meant the world to us as players in the strangest twist of ironies, though. We win the game. We think we got a shot at a bowl, and had there been 64 bowl games like there are now, we would have absolutely gone to a bowl. But we didn't go to the bowl, and the next day, Red Wilson was fired.
Right.
And so we had the first back-to-back winning seasons in Duke's history. Mind you, the football team at that point was better than Mike Krzyzewski's basketball team.
Right.
You know, they had Johnny Dawkins as a freshman.
They were struggling.
I remember watching lose to Stetson.
Yep.
You know, and
Coach K talks about that.
Oh my gosh.
I talked to him a number of times about
painful,
that.
Painful. And Carolina, we went to watch some basketball games, and they had Worthy, Perkins, Jordan.
Well, they were a national championship.
It was ridiculous, but Coach K got that fixed. But yeah, that was, we thought that was the beginning of the turn of Duke football, and we just didn't sustain it. We changed coaches, and
Steve Sloan came in.
Yeah, Steve Sloan came in, struggled. More coaches came in. Coach Spurrier came back, and I went to that drubbing over at North Carolina where the team laid out in front of the scoreboard. I think it was 41-0.
Yeah. You know Steve Spurrier, if you walk in his office in South Carolina right now, one of the more prominent pictures, and I've told a number of players, is Steve Spurrier's picture in the scoreboard.
With the whole team laid out in front of him, over at Kenan Stadium.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, he didn't make a lot of friends at Carolina that day.
I don't think
he hasn't made a whole lot of friends at Clemson, being at South Carolina now.
That's Coach Spurrier.
But
when you guys, you got it going, you turned it around, but for the program, how long did it take you to really get into the rivalry? Because you didn't come from right around the triangle area.
Right.
So for you, how long before the light went off and you go, every game is important, but I really want to take out those guys in powder blue?
The first time we played them. I mean, it was, it was clear that it was palpable in the air. The thing about being here in Durham and, in Chapel Hill is everything revolves around Duke and North Carolina,
right.
North Carolina State. There are no pro teams. This is all that matters.
Right.
And people, it doesn't take long at all to realize, I mean, you can make or break people's years by having a big win or losing a close game. And fortunately, I think I've outgrown a lot of that. I mean, I represent Carolina Tar Heels right now. I represent Ryan Taylor, who's a tight end for the Green Bay Packers, and Bruce Carter, who's a linebacker now with the Dallas Cowboys. I also represent guys from State.
So you don't tell them you played football at Duke?
No, I tell them. I say, hey, are you okay with being represented by a Dookie? We did tell you a long time ago, that graduate from Duke, you're going to work for us. But obviously, I'm working for you. But yeah, I have a great deal of respect for the University of North Carolina. I feel horrible for what they're going through right now, because I think they're a much better institution than they're being portrayed to be. But they'll weather the storm. But I honestly do feel bad for them, though better them than us.
Speaking of better them than us, wow, how us has changed.
Yeah.
Boy,
yeah.
Duke football now.
I've been doing this for 18 years, and I've only recruited really one Duke football player, and that was the guy I signed this year, Ross Cockrell, who went in the fourth round playing for the Buffalo Bills. Fantastic young man, fantastic family. I'm living my aspirations through him. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. He got drafted. He's going to have a great career. I didn't.
Well, you got drafted by.
No, I didn't. I signed a free agent contract and was in training camp, but didn't make it, which is fine. But yeah, it's amazing how far Coach Cutcliffe has turned things around. Didn't happen immediately, obviously, but it has happened. It truly has happened, and I see it being sustained. I think Duke is going to be a better football team this year than they were last year. And I can tell you, as an agent professionally, Duke has more NFL prospects than North Carolina does right now. And
that's amazing.
I hope that Duke continues to sustain that, because we're still getting high-character guys who are academically qualified, who are going to graduate, and we're graduating at the same clip that we always have. But Coach Cutcliffe has done a fantastic job of targeting the right people, and he has the resources to go nationally to find, as he calls it, I want the Navy SEALs. I'm not trying to build, a Navy. I'm trying to build a Navy SEALs force. I want this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. And it's working. And he's playing the right guys at the right time, the young guys who can play right away, that aren't big offensive linemen. Those guys are playing. So by the time they're juniors, they've had a lot of experience. Meanwhile, the offensive linemen oftentimes are redshirted so they can grow into their bodies. And, he's got a system that's working. And it's sustaining. And that's been the hardest thing about Duke football. There's been these spikes.
Sure. Like every fifth year.
Yeah,
or so.
We're hoping that this is not going to be a spike. We're hoping now we've reached a plateau. And we're going to be looking at, 8, 9, 10 wins a year and be consistent. And they're one thing that somebody from, I won't mention who they are, but somebody affiliated with North Carolina commented the other day about the whole Rashad McCants thing. And they said, unfortunately, we're not addressing the fact that there's a conflict between having elite college sports and elite academic experience. And I just think that's wrong. You can absolutely have both. You have to be committed to do both. Mm-hmm. And that means how you go about finding the players and the athletes to bring to your institution, and that they have their priorities straight, and that your institution has its priorities straight. And you can absolutely have great players who can go on and have great professional careers, but also have great academic futures too. I have several of my friends are doctors, and lawyers, and very, very successful people who launched their professional careers not as football players, but as professionals based on the education they got to do. And I think you can absolutely do that at North Carolina and anywhere else, or a lot of other places.
For you watching this season unfold, it was like a build.
Yeah.
You kept thinking, well, can they continue this? Can they continue this? And the Blue Devils kept doing it.
When I went to the Miami game, and, I knew Miami wasn't quite as good as they'd been in the past, but,
they were still Miami.
They were still Miami, and they still had some talent. They had a lot of talent. And when we broke that big run to break the game open, I literally started crying. I could not help myself. I literally was standing there with a tear rolling down my eyes because I knew what those kids were feeling. Mm-hmm. And we went through almost 20 years at Duke of just being awful.
And people were suggesting you were in the wrong division.
People were suggesting we should get rid of football.
Right.
And how wrong are they? These are Ross Cockrell is the epitome of what it's all about. You can get a great education. I think he's already he's got his master's degree, and he got drafted in the NFL. He's going to play in the NFL probably for a long time, and then have a life after football, have nothing to do with football, if he so chooses. You can do it all. It can be done. It ain't easy, though.
Right.
So don't just think you can just throw together a program and bring in athletes and it's going to happen. You have to really pay attention and do things the right way, and Duke has done a fantastic job bringing in Coach Cutcliffe, and knock on wood, hopefully we'll have a nice long winning streak against those Carolina Tar Heels.
They made it 2 in a row against those Tar Heels this past season.
Which I don't know the last time that happened.
Yeah, that's been a long time.
Maybe my lifetime. I don't know that that's happened in my life.
This is prior to Joby.
There you go. There you go. And would we have 11 wins?
Yeah. 2 in a row, and this last one at Kenan Stadium.
Yeah.
And this coming season, you get the Tar Heels on a Thursday night at Wallace Wade Stadium.
I will be there.
Can you imagine what that will mean to the program?
It's funny. I talked with a lot of my former teammates, and we all had when we were at the bottom of the bottom, we had a summit, a Duke football summit. All the players came together to talk about where the program was, how can we, make it better, what can we do. And the one thing that all of us truly wanted, we wanted to keep the academics where they are. We wanted guys to graduate. What we really wanted from the football program is to be relevant in November, to have games at Wallace Wade that mattered. Right. And I think we're back. We're there. I don't know, back to there, because that may not have happened since the Iron Dukes.
You talk about George McAfee.
Yeah.
We're going way back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, look, Thursday night this fall is going to be a big night. Everybody's looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Carolina and Duke at Wallace Wade.
Sure.
So it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Joby Branion, former Duke defensive back, thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
And super agent, Athletes First. Thank you
Go Duke.
for joining us on Blue Blood TV at Tyler's Tap Room from Durham, North Carolina.